If someone had told me a year ago that the most defining moment of my adulthood would be watching the man I loved let another woman drag her hand up his thigh in a crowded bar, I would have laughed. I used to believe heartbreak came with warning signs, arguments distance cold silence. But the truth is simpler and far more brutal. Sometimes the person you trust just turns their face towards someone else, and they don't bother to turn back. I had been with Elias Ward, age 27, for 3 years. We had lived together for 2. On social media, we looked like a polished, enviable couple. My structured career in supply chain operations, paired with his easy charm and camera-ready smile. People assumed we were equals. We weren't. I was the backbone, the planner, the financial engine. Elias was the personality, the sparkle, the one who wanted the world to notice him. My work is not glamorous. Logistics management means early alarms crisis emails before sunrise spreadsheets that dictate global movement of goods more than human emotion does. But that quiet, disciplined job paid for the sleek apartment in the center of the city that Elias loved to photograph for his followers. It paid for his student loans during his career, slump his nights out that he called networking, and the dinners he promised he would cover someday when he caught a break. In the beginning, his charm was directed at me. He made me feel like I was the only person in the room worth looking at. But in the last 6 months, that light had shifted. Not gradually, violently. He needed attention the way some people need air. Strangers, co-workers, even cashiers at the corner store. He fed off their reactions, their laughter, their flattery. And when I asked why he kept hiding his phone when I entered the room, why he stayed out until 2 in the morning with work contacts, I had never met. The script was always the same. Janet, you are so controlling. You are suffocating me. You need to learn how to trust someone. You're acting like an old lady. He said those things with a superior shrug, like I was the problem, like wanting respect made me weak. I convinced myself I was being paranoid. I convinced myself that confidence meant never questioning him. But confidence is not the same as self-abandonment. I learned that too late. The real one came when he joined a new PR firm, a place full of people who live for nightlife and curated chaos. Suddenly, our quiet Friday evenings became unacceptable. He needed to be out, needed to be seen, needed to keep up with the energy of the group. And at the center of that group was Marissa Hayes, his coworker. She was the kind of woman who treated boundaries like suggestions, who laughed too loudly at things that weren't funny, who stood a little too close, whose gaze lingered a little too long. The first time I met her, she sized me up the way people inspect return policy tags on receipts, calculating what she could get away with. That Friday, Elias told me we were going out with his crew. It wasn't an invitation, it was an order. "You have to come," he said, brushing on cologne he only wore when he wanted to impress someone. "Everyone thinks you're imaginary, and Marissa keeps asking about you." "Marissa," I repeated. He paused for a split second, barely noticeable unless you knew him. "She's basically the group mom he claimed. Calm down." But when he turned around, I saw he was wearing the fitted navy shirt he usually saved for anniversaries. He didn't dress like that for me anymore. We arrived at an industrial chic bar, exposed brick dim bulbs music that made normal conversation impossible. His group occupied a massive booth in the back, and there she was, Marissa, sitting in the center seat, like it was a throne. Elias didn't introduce me. He simply slid into the booth next to her shoulder, pressed against hers. I ended up dragging a bar stool from a nearby table, perched awkwardly at the edge of the group like an uninvited guest. "So this is the legendary Janet Marissa," announced smirking. Her eyes slid over me like she was sizing up a competitor for a job opening. "You look so serious." "Elias did say you were the sensible one." Laughter erupted around the table. Elias laughed the hardest. "She works in logistics," he said, resting his elbow behind Marissa. "She basically keeps the world from falling apart." "How thrilling," Marissa replied with a straight face. I ordered a bourbon and tried desperately to keep my composure. I watched their body language, the way he leaned toward her, the way she whispered into his ear, the way he didn't move away. 40 minutes in, I excused myself to the bathroom. I splashed cold water on my face, stared at my reflection, and forced myself to breathe. Do not be the jealous girlfriend, I told myself. Do not give him something to mock later. But the pit in my stomach felt like a warning I was ignoring. When I walked back, they didn't see me approach. The angle of the booth let me see everything before they noticed me. Marissa was leaning into Elias, their heads touching, as she showed him something on her phone. And her hand, her manicured, deliberate hand, rested on Elias's upper thigh. Not his knee, not an accidental brush. High, intimate, possessive. Her thumb was rubbing slow circles into the fabric of his jeans. Elias wasn't pushing her away. He wasn't uncomfortable. He was letting her claim him. The noise of the bar vanished. I felt the blood rush in my ears. It wasn't jealousy. It was the raw physical sensation of being disrespected so deeply that the humiliation burned hotter than anger. I stepped forward. I tapped Elias's shoulder. He looked back, annoyed to see me. I pointed at Marissa's hand. My voice was low, controlled. Elias, tell her to remove her hand. Marissa didn't pull away. She actually squeezed his thigh, like testing a boundary she already knew he wouldn't defend. Elias chuckled. Janet, relax. She gets touchy when she's drunk. You always overreact. The table laughed again. I watched Elias bask in it. And that was the moment. The precise moment something inside me, something loyal and patient and exhausted, finally let go. Not a break, a release. I looked at him and felt nothing. Not hatred, not heartbreak, just emptiness, as if the love I had been pouring into him had evaporated into thin air. You're right, I said quietly. Elias smirked, thinking he had won, but he had no idea what he had just lost. I finished my bourbon in one smooth swallow, set the glass down, pulled a $100 bill from my purse and placed it on the table. For my drink and yours, I said. Then I turned and walked toward the exit without looking back. The cool night air hit me like clarity. By the time I reached my car, the plan was already fully formed. If Elias needed attention, validation, chaos, he could have all of it. Just not in my home, not in my life. I started the engine. I had exactly 1 hour before he realized I wasn't coming back. Plenty of time to pack every piece of him out of my apartment. When I pulled into the parking garage of our apartment building, the quiet was almost eerie. Usually, coming home after a night out with Elias meant stepping into a powder keg. He would stomp around slamming cabinet doors, accusing me of ruining his vibe, demanding explanations for imaginary slights. But tonight, I entered a silent apartment, a space that immediately felt less like a home and more like a clean workspace waiting for a task. And I had a task, a very specific one. The moment I stepped inside, I inhaled the scent that had become familiar over the past 2 years. Elias's cologne mixed with the warm vanilla candles he insisted on buying because they look good in the background of photos. For a second, a flicker of nostalgia tried to claw its way up my throat. The couch where we watched movies, the blanket we fought over every winter. His shoes kicked messily near the door, as if his presence still lingered in the air, unaware of the eviction already underway. But I pushed all of that aside. Emotions complicate execution, and I was in execution mode. People romanticize heartbreak as some sort of dramatic unraveling, sobbing on the floor, tearing up photographs, screaming into the void. But real heartbreak, the kind that is quiet and precise, feels more like performing surgery. You cut away what no longer belongs, and you don't stop cutting until the infection is gone. I went straight to the closet. The suitcases were exactly where I left them after our canceled Italy trip, still tagged barely used. I pulled them out, unzipped them, and opened them wide on the bed. Then I started packing. Not frantically, not angrily, systematically. I folded his shirts, every one of them, even the ones I hated. His jeans arranged by color. His endless collection of overpriced sneakers lined neatly along the suitcase edges. His watches each nestled into a small protective case. I didn't throw anything. I didn't damage anything. I didn't leave passive-aggressive notes. I simply removed him piece by piece. Next came the bathroom. Elias had more grooming products than most women. I knew serums, sprays, styling creams, a hairdryer with attachments I had never seen before. I swept everything into a large duffel bag. Razor clone deodorant toothbrush, gone. Then the living room, his gaming headset, his ring light, the stack of self-help books he bought but never opened. All of it went into a cardboard box I taped shut with satisfying finality. 2 years of shared life dismantled in 45 minutes. That's the part people never understand. When the love is gone, the cleanup is shockingly easy. By the time the clock struck 12:05 a.m., I was rolling the suitcases and bags into the hallway just outside the apartment. The elevator ping echoed softly as I lined everything against the wall, as neatly as if I were staging a hotel lobby. I went back inside. I removed my key from my keyring. Then I found his spare key, the one he kept in the kitchen drawer under old takeout menus. I placed both keys on the dining table side by side. Finally, I engaged the deadbolt from the inside. Once that bolt slid into place, an almost physical calm settled over me. It was strange, peaceful, almost cleansing. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying. I was simply free. I sat on the couch, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and waited. I didn't know exactly when he'd notice I was gone, but Elias had two predictable habits: needing control and needing validation. The second he realized I wasn't orbiting his chaos, he would panic. People like Elias always panic when the dependable finally walk away. At 12:22 a.m., my phone lit up. Elias calling. I let it ring until it stopped. 30 seconds later, Elias calling. I let it ring again. Then came the texts. "Where did you go? Seriously, you just left. Everybody was laughing at you. You embarrassed me. Pick up the phone, Janet." I took another sip of my beer and watched the screen glow in the darkness. When the phone rang a third time, I answered. He didn't start with hello. "Where the hell are you?" he demanded. His voice slurred, the kind of careless intoxication he wore like armor. "At the apartment," I said. "You left me!" he screamed. "You literally abandoned me because you couldn't handle a joke. Marissa had to pay for my drink because you ran away like a—" I didn't run," I said calmly. "I left. There's a difference. You need to come pick me up. I'm freezing." "No." Silence. The kind that signals disbelief. "What did you just say?" I said no. "I'm not coming to get you, Elias." "You're being dramatic," he snapped. "Just get in the car and—" "I am not picking you up," I repeated. "Marissa can take you home. You made it very clear she's the one you prefer in your space." He let out a bitter laugh. "Oh my God. Janet, don't start this. It meant nothing. She's just clingy. It was a joke. You're acting insane. Then you should have no problem catching a ride from someone else." "I'm taking an Uber," he growled, trying to reassert control. "And when I get home, you're sleeping on the couch." "I'm not sleeping on the couch." "Oh, you think you're going to kick me out of the bedroom?" "Try again, Elias," I said, my voice steady and almost gentle. "You don't live here anymore." The silence was ice cold. "What?" he asked, laughing nervously. "Janet, what are you talking about?" "I went home to pack your things. They're in the hallway. Suitcases, bags, your chargers in a box. Everything you'll need for a while." "You packed my—" "You're joking. This is one of your dramatic episodes." "I'm not joking. You cannot kick me out. I'm on the lease." "No, you're not," I said. "I renewed it last month alone." His breath hitched. You didn't tell me that." "You didn't ask," I replied. "And you haven't paid rent in 3 months, Elias. So don't try to make this a legal conversation." "I'm coming home," he hissed. "And if you don't open that door, I'm calling the police." "Call them," I said. "I'll show them every message where you belittled me and every financial record showing I've supported you for 2 years. But Elias, I'm not opening this door." His voice shifted, then anger dissolving into fear. "Janet, where am I supposed to go?" "I don't know," I said softly. "Maybe Marissa has room on her couch. She seemed very accommodating." He let out a strangled sound, half sob, half curse, before I hung up. Then I blocked his number. At 3:15 a.m., the elevator dinged. He started pounding on the door, screaming my name, begging, threatening, crying. It sounded like a storm beating against a sealed window. Loud, desperate, but ultimately powerless. After 20 minutes, another voice drifted through the door. A female voice. "Elias, come on," she said. "Let's go." "Marissa," he protested weakly. She coaxed him. Eventually, the elevator dinged again. Silence. The kind of silence that feels like the first deep breath after almost drowning. I slept for 10 hours. The weeks that followed felt unreal, not because anything dramatic happened, but because nothing did. For the first time in years, my life was quiet, steady, predictable in a way that felt like standing in warm sunlight after months of rain. I didn't realize how much space Elias had taken up in my head until he wasn't there to fill it anymore. The first morning alone, I woke up without tension in my shoulders. I brewed coffee without worrying about whether the grinder would wake him and trigger an argument. I left for work without tripping over his shoes. When I came home, the apartment looked exactly as I left it. No messes, no demands, no chaos. It was shocking how peaceful a life could be when it wasn't being constantly disrupted. I threw myself into my job the way I always wished I could, without distraction. I stayed late because I wanted to, not because I was avoiding another argument. I solved a supply chain problem that had plagued our department for months. My performance surged. My boss noticed. 3 weeks after the breakup, I got a promotion. Elias had always said my job was boring, but boring things like structure, organization, self-respect have a way of quietly building empires. I was proof of that. My bank account began to grow too, without his nightly emergencies, random subscription renewals, bar tabs, masquerading as business expenses or impulsive shopping sprees charged to my card. I realized just how much financial oxygen Elias had sucked out of my life. By the end of the month, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: security, independence, stability. Meanwhile, the hurricane forming on Elias's side became impossible to ignore. I didn't check his social media. I had blocked him everywhere, but even that didn't spare me from the screenshots friends kept sending. Just so you know, the narrative he spun online was spectacular in its fiction. According to him, I was an emotionally abusive control freak who threw him out on the street in the middle of the night because he dared to talk to a female coworker. He posted tearful selfies in cars' bathrooms and stairwells. He shared dramatic quotes about surviving toxic relationships and healing from cruelty. He even posted a vague message about finally escaping manipulation. His followers ate it up. He gained sympathy comments, validation, the very things he lived for. But the people who knew me, they didn't buy any of it. I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself. I didn't send counter screenshots. I chose gray rock, emotionless, unreactive, untouchable. People think silence is weak, but silence is a fortress. And Elias had no idea how to breach it. 2 months in his online smear campaign slowed. Maybe the sympathy dried up. Maybe the drama stopped getting him attention. Maybe people started to see through him. Whatever the reason, the posts became less frequent. Eventually, they stopped entirely, which ironically was when the real chaos began for him. My friend Rebecca, one of the few people who received the full truth without embellishment, slid her phone across the table one evening while we had dinner. "You want an update on your ex," she said. "Or should I just pretend none of this exists? Give it to me," I said, bracing myself. "It's bad," she warned softly. "Like bad." The photo on the screen was of Elias and Marissa standing in what looked like a poorly lit living room, pizza boxes stacked on the coffee table, clothing draped over mismatched furniture, a tapestry pinned crookedly to the wall behind them, like some kind of makeshift decoration. The kind of room that made you feel dusty just looking at it. It wasn't the mess that shocked me. It was them. Elias looked diminished. His once meticulously styled hair was unkempt. His cheeks were sunken. His posture slouched. He wore a t-shirt torn near the neckline, something he wouldn't have been caught dead in 6 months ago. Marissa looked worse. Her eyeliner smudged her expression strained. Her smile forced. The gloss of her curated, flirtatious persona had faded. She looked older, exhausted. The shine was gone from both of them. "They're official," Rebecca said. "Well, as official as two people can be when their entire relationship is screaming at each other in public." "What happened to Elias's job?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "Fired," she confirmed. "He kept showing up late or hungover or not at all. And Marissa, she's spending her paycheck covering his expenses now. At least, that's what people at their old office say. Apparently, he's been shock of the century, flirting with other women at bars, and she is not handling it gracefully. There was a scene, actually more than one. I stared at the photo, feeling none of the satisfaction people expect in these situations. No triumphant vindication. No victorious glow, just an odd mix of pity and inevitability. A man who burns down his own life will always look surprised when he's left standing in the ashes. He asks about you, Rebecca added, watching my face carefully. My eyebrow lifted. About me? Not directly, but in that way people ask when they're trying not to care. He asked one of his friends if you're seeing anyone, if you're okay, if you ever talk about him. And what did you tell them? I asked. The truth, she said. That you're doing great. I exhaled a slow, quiet breath that felt like closing a chapter. But Rebecca wasn't finished. He's not stable, Janet. He's going to reach out eventually. Men like him don't let go of their lifelines. Not really. Not when the world they chose starts collapsing around them. I didn't doubt it. Elias always believed the worst consequences would never reach him. He believed someone, usually me, would rescue him before things became too real, too painful, too permanent. He didn't understand that I had cut the cord, that there would be no rescue, and still, somewhere deep down, I could feel it. The silence wouldn't last forever. People like Elias never stay quiet. The crash was coming. All that remained was waiting for the impact. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of forgettable weekday when life feels steady, almost painfully ordinary. I was leaving a meeting about a major routing overhaul, one of those career-defining projects I could never have handled, while juggling the emotional maintenance of dating Elias when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally, I let unfamiliar calls go to voicemail, but I had been expecting a contractor to return my message about furniture repairs in the apartment, so I answered, "This is Janet." There was a pause, a small, shaky inhale. "Janet." The voice was unmistakable, even in its fragile, unraveling form. Elias. For the first time in half a year, hearing him didn't ignite anything. Not anger, not longing, not bitterness. His voice hit me like background noise, a sound I recognized but no longer reacted to. "I didn't think you'd pick up," he said. "I didn't know it was you," I replied. "What do you want?" I need 5 minutes just to talk." The desperation was barely hidden. "Please, I'm not asking for anything. I just need clarity." Clarity, as if clarity was something he'd ever valued. My mind flicked through a dozen possible responses. Hang up, ignore him, block the number again. That's what any sane advice column would tell me to do. But I have never been a person who leaves a loose thread unexamined. Logistics trains you to assess every unknown variable before deciding whether it's a threat. So I agreed. "I'm leaving the gym in 20 minutes, I said. "If you want to say something, you can say it in the parking lot. I'm not meeting you for coffee. I'm not going anywhere private." "Okay," he said instantly. "I'll be there." I knew he would. When I walked out of the gym, the late afternoon sun lit the asphalt in soft gold. My new car, a sleek charcoal coupe I'd finally allowed myself to buy, reflected the light like a polished stone. I felt composed, strong, entirely myself. Then I saw him. He was leaning against the hood of an old Honda Civic 2 spots down. The contrast between us was stark and almost cinematic, like a before and after image. Except this time, I was the after, and he was the before. He was thinner, not in the healthy, disciplined way, but in the way stress eats at a person. His hair was unkempt. His eyes ringed with exhaustion. He wore a hoodie that looked as if it had seen more floors than closets. His once meticulous posture had collapsed into something slouched, defeated. When he saw me, his mouth parted slightly. A small broken sound escaped him. "Wow," he whispered. "You look incredible." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. "And you look tired," I said quietly. It wasn't an insult, just the truth. He let out a jagged laugh. "Yeah, it's been a rough couple of months." "I heard about Marissa," I said. Though Rebecca had only given me fragments, Elias flinched a full-body recoil. "She's a sociopath," he blurted. "You were right about everything. She cheated on me with the bartender at that same bar we went to. Can you believe that? The irony was a living thing between us." "I can believe it," I replied. "She showed you exactly who she was the night I met her. You just didn't want to look." "I know." he said, voice cracking. God, Janet, I know. Then the tears came. Not gentle tears, not dignified sadness. This was the guttural sobbing of someone who had burned their own house down and finally looked at the ashes. I was so stupid, he choked out. I got caught up in the attention, the nightlife, the validation. I don't even know what I was thinking. I miss you. I miss us. I miss my best friend. He took a step closer. His hands twitched like he wanted to touch me, but knew he shouldn't. I'm staying at my mother's place now, he continued. I left Marissa. I'm done with that life. I'm ready to be serious again. I'm ready to be the man you wanted. A long, quiet moment passed. I looked at him, really looked, and waited for something inside me to react. Love, anger, sadness, anything. But the space inside me where he used to live was empty, completely peacefully empty. You're not ready to be serious, Elias, I said, unlocking my car. You're just broke. He reeled back like I'd slapped him. That's not fair, he whispered. No, I asked calmly. Let's go over the facts. I leaned against my door, meeting his eyes without flinching. You didn't love me when you let Marissa put her hand up your thigh. You didn't love me when you mocked me in front of your friends. You didn't love me when you lied, hid your phone, and called me controlling for wanting basic respect. You didn't love me when you spun fake stories online to get sympathy. And you didn't love me when you watched me walk out that bar door and didn't bother to follow. Tears streamed down his face. People make mistakes, he whispered. I was angry. I wasn't myself. Buying the wrong brand of milk is a mistake, I said coldly. Humiliating your partner to boost your ego is a character flaw. And unlike mistakes, character flaws don't go away because you're lonely. I'm not lonely, he snapped, mask cracking. I want you. We had 3 years, Janet. You can't just throw that away because of one bad night. It wasn't one night, I replied. That night was just the audit. The real damage had been happening for a long time. His breath shook. So that's it. You're just going to be cold. You're going to punish me forever. I'm not punishing you, I said. Punishing you would require caring enough to teach you a lesson. I don't want to teach you anything. I want peace. I opened my car door. He lunged not aggressively, but desperately and grabbed my arm. His grip was weak, shaking. Please, he begged. Just one drink. Let me explain. Let me try. I can be different. I swear. I stared at his hand until the discomfort forced him to let go on his own. You told me that night, I said softly, that I caused too much drama, that I embarrassed you. His mouth opened, trembling. I didn't mean it. It doesn't matter if you meant it, I replied. Because you were right. He blinked, confused. Drama is inefficient. It is a waste of resources. And Elias. I stepped into the driver's seat, meeting his eyes through the open door. You are pure overhead. His face crumpled. Janet, please. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I closed the door, started the engine, rolled down the window. You'll figure things out, I said. You always land somewhere, but that somewhere won't be me. He shook his head violently. You'll never find anyone like me. You're right, I said calmly. And thank God for that. I rolled the window up and pulled out of the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, he stood alone on the cracked pavement. Small, frantic, irrelevant, yelling my name as my car vanished into the warm, fading light. I didn't look back again. There was nothing behind me worth seeing. In the days after that parking lot meeting, I expected Elias to disappear quietly. That would have been the mature thing to do, the logical thing. But logic had never governed his life, only impulse. And people like Elias do not fade. They thrash. They claw for the stage lights even as the set collapses around them. The first escalation came 2 days later. A long, rambling email from an address I didn't recognize landed in my inbox. He must have created a new account after I blocked his old one. The subject line read, "Please just read." Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was a 10-paragraph monologue about regret, loneliness, and undying love. He apologized for letting things get messy, as if infidelity and public humiliation were spilled paint on a carpet rather than a pattern of choices. He said he finally understood what I meant about boundaries. He said losing me was like losing the sun. He said he was willing to go to therapy for me. He said all the right words wrapped in all the wrong intentions. But one line stood out above everything else. I need you. I don't know how to fix myself without you. There it was. The truth. Not love dependency, not partnership survival, not remorse desperation. I didn't respond. He tried again the next day, this time through a phone number with no caller ID. I let it ring. He tried at midnight, then again at 2:14 a.m., blocked. By the end of the week, he had run out of new ways to contact me. That's when his tone changed. The sweetness curdled. When manipulation no longer worked, he reached for anger. The next email came from yet another new address. This time, the subject line read, "You owe me." I didn't need to open it to know the contents. I deleted it instantly, but the pattern was clear. Elias wasn't searching for closure. He was clawing for control. Still, I stayed quiet. I stayed grounded. I stayed elsewhere, mentally, emotionally, geographically. My life was too peaceful to let him drag me back into the storm he'd created. But storms, even dying ones, tend to thrash hardest before they disappear. The final confrontation came on an unexpected afternoon. I had taken my car in for routine maintenance and was walking back through the garage toward the elevator. The air smelled faintly of gasoline and warm concrete. The hum of engines echoed in the distance. Then I heard footsteps behind me, quick, uneven, almost running. "Janet!" My whole body went cold. Elias. He looked worse than the last time I saw him, paler, more frantic. His hair was unwashed. His hoodie hung off one shoulder. His eyes were wild as if he hadn't slept in days. He jogged toward me, nearly tripping. "Why won't you answer me?" he demanded. "Why are you being so cold?" I stayed still, grounded. "Elias," I said calmly, "you need to leave." "No." His voice cracked. "No, I'm not leaving until we talk. For real this time. Not in a parking lot. Not rushed. You owe me that." "I don't owe you anything." He laughed, short, high, unhinged. "We were together for 3 years. You can't just switch off your feelings like some machine." "I didn't switch anything off," I said. "You burned it out." He stepped closer, too close. "You think you're better than me now," he spat, "with your job, your new car, your new life. You think you get to just walk away and pretend I never mattered?" "You mattered," I said softly. "But not in the way you think. You mattered as a lesson." His jaw clenched. "A lesson," he repeated. "So I'm just some mistake you're glad to be rid of." "No," I replied. "You weren't a mistake. Mistakes are accidents. Accidents can be forgiven." He swallowed hard, waiting. "But you," I continued steadily, "were a calculated loss, an unprofitable investment. A liability I kept too long because I confused patience with loyalty." His face twisted anger, shame, disbelief, all fighting for dominance. "You're heartless," he whispered. "You're acting like some executive cutting cost." "If that helps you understand," I said, "then sure." Tears welled in his eyes. "I loved you. I still do." I didn't flinch. "You didn't love me," I said. "You loved the version of yourself I allowed you to be. The supported version, the protected version, the sheltered version." "That's not true." "I loved you," I said, cutting him off, "for a long time, and you knew that. But you didn't protect that love. You exploited it." He pressed his hands to his face. "I can change," he whispered. "I'll do anything." "I don't want you to change for me," I said. "Because the man I want, the man who could meet me where I am, was never you." His shoulders shook. "So that's it," he choked. "You're just done." "Yes." He stared at me, breathing hard. Then something dark flickered in his expression, the last flicker of the version of him I had walked away from. "You'll regret this," he said softly. "No," I replied. "I regret staying as long as I did." A tremor passed through him. He wiped his face with the sleeve of his hoodie and took a shaky step backward. "You'll never find anyone like me," he said again. But this time the words were wilted hollow, defeated. I hope not, I said gently. He swallowed, looked at me one last time, and nodded. Tiny, broken final. Then he walked away. No yelling, no pleading, no theatrics, just footsteps fading into the concrete silence. I stood there for a long moment, inhaling deeply, letting the calm settle into my bones. The garage felt oddly sacred, like a sanctuary carved out of steel and quiet. When I finally stepped into the elevator, I could feel it. The drama was gone. The chaos was gone. The weight was gone. What remained was peace. Clean, steady, undeniable peace. I didn't look back. There was nothing behind me worth seeing.